All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Land of Chem. I am your host and the author. My name is Jeffrey Drum. Thank you all so much for joining me again. All right, everyone. Before I proceed with the opening of today's episode, I want to express my overwhelming gratitude for you being a part of this journey with me. You don't know it yet, but you will by the end of this video that this is a seminal episode for me, and the things that I've discovered in the process of searching for an explanation have brought me back full circle to the genesis of my idea for the book and to the first episode that I ever presented here on the Land of Chem YouTube channel. This was a truly humbling moment for me, and one of the most monumental revelations that I have made thus far in my research. I have said this before, that what I'm presenting to you now is just the tip of the iceberg, and that the further I go with my research, the more uncomfortable I become with the implications thereof. I was considering holding off on this video until I could better understand the complexities of this mystery, but I wanted you all to be along for the ride with me, and this is just something I couldn't hold off on, because it so beautifully encapsulates everything that I've proposed in the first book in the series, and it will also provide a better understanding for what you will see soon coming up in regard to the Osiris shaft system. This is one of the most complicated and frustrating and exhilarating investigations that I have ever done in preparation for a video. So with all of that being said, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, and this is episode 55, the chemical analysis of the red pyramid staining part 2. And in today's episode, I am diving deeper into the unbelievably perplexing results of this analytic scanning electron microscopy discovery that was performed by the ACITA project on samples that were taken of the black material extruding from the chamber walls inside of the red pyramid. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube and click that little notification bell so that you get noticed when the new videos premiere every single week. Trust me, you do not want to miss the material I have coming up, so please subscribe and stay tuned. Also, check out my appearance on Odin's Alchemy with Benjamin Balderson, now available on his YouTube channel, with a members-only discussion to follow on his Rockfin channel. I will put links in the video description below. This was one of my best presentations to date, focusing on the connections between the medieval alchemical process and the chemical engineering of the Egyptian pyramids. And this is an amazing conversation with Ben, who is one of the most knowledgeable individuals out there in the realm of practical ancient alchemy. So thank you so much to Ben for having me on, and definitely check out the show, link in the video description below. Also, check out my second appearance on the Expanding Reality podcast, also now available on YouTube, expandingrealitypodcast.com, and everywhere else you get your podcast. This was another amazing conversation with my good friend Brandon, where we reviewed my recent 2022 research expedition to Egypt, and I have a part 2 coming up soon where we talk about Freemasonry and all things weird and esoteric. So definitely check it out. Link in the video description below to the Expanding Reality podcast. Brandon, thank you so much for having me on the show, and I will talk to you again soon. Thank you, brother. And if you want to help support the channel, just go to thelandofchem.com. I have limited first edition print copies of the book, brand new Land of Chem merch. Either way, all the orders mean the world to me. Thank you all so much for your support. Well, everyone, I hope you are ready to get your minds melted, because the same thing happened to me when I was putting together this video. So without further ado, buckle your seatbelts and let's get right to it. All right, everyone, here we go with tonight's episode. So here is a review and chemical analysis of some samples from regular limestone, so we can see what this stone usually contains. And we have here silicon oxides, aluminum oxides, iron oxides, calcium oxides, magnesium oxides, potassium oxides, sodium oxides, chlorine, and sulfur oxides, with the vast majority being calcium oxides from the calcium carbonate, which you can see here re-verified below in the 85 to 90% of the dried weight material being calcium carbonate, with all of the other various oxides that I mentioned before. Next, here's another sample set with a bit different composition, and we see magnesium oxide, aluminum oxide, silicon oxide, and a bit different here. We have some phosphorus oxides, calcium oxides, magnesium oxides, which is another different one, iron oxides, nickel and copper oxides, also a little bit different than the previous samples. We also have found in this sample the infamous strontium. Now, most of this material being the calcium oxides and carbon dioxide from the calcium carbonate CaCO3 lattice. Now, notice that there are very small concentrations of metallic particle inclusions of magnesium and aluminum oxides, which you can see here in the tenths of a percent. And this group over here being in the hundredths of a percent. Very, very minute quantities of the total sample. Okay, so this is what limestone is and what limestone should have in it. All right then, end of story. Nothing to see here. These chambers are all made of limestone for a pharaonic burial, so now let's just all move on with our lives. And that is how the story goes up until 2017 during my first expedition to Egypt when I the first time. And I had very much the same reaction as all of you may have had your first time seeing it. What the hell is this material? And why are the inside of these chambers covered with chemical staining? And why the hell does it smell like ammonia in here? And I knew back then, 5 years ago, what has finally been verified in the process of researching for today's episode. First, that this staining has absolutely nothing to do with bats. And if you haven't already, please watch the chemical analysis of the Red Pyramid staining part 1, where I, with great pleasure, systematically dismantle that fallacious explanation. Link in the video description below. And second, that these chambers were coated with a chemical sealant, the composition of which depended on the operation of the different structures. So fast forward to 2022, and I get in touch with the ACITA project to obtain this chemical analysis that was performed using analytic scanning electron microscopy. And these are some of the images of the material that was taken from the staining inside of the Red Pyramid. And you can see here very clearly the crystalline composition of this material that I mentioned in the previous episode, showing you the stains during my tour inside of the Red Pyramid. And we will get back to this crystalline structure at the end of the video. Okay, so here we go with a quick review of the electron microscopy discovery. And in this particular scan, nothing unusual to see here except for the fact that there is no calcium or carbon, which would be expected from calcium carbonate limestone. Now, another list similar to the previous one that corresponds with what we saw in the chemical analysis of normal limestone samples presented at the beginning of the video. But notice again, the very, very minute concentration of calcium. Moving on. So in this next scan, we have all of the usual suspects. The small concentration of calcium, and now some zinc and barium. So I put in an extensive amount of research to arrive at the conclusions in today's video, and I discovered that these concentrations of zinc and barium are totally normal in some deposits of limestone. So these are all natural constituents of the limestone itself. Next up. All right, here we are adding some molybdenum into the mix. But at this concentration, it can be explained as a naturally occurring trace element contained within the limestone. However, remember, the bismuth, tungsten, and molybdenum particle from the metallurgical analysis of the slaw blades that I presented in the previous episodes. And in my opinion, the recurrence of these elements that you will see as we proceed with these chemical analyses decreases the probability that they are naturally occurring. And that's right, ladies and gentlemen, I have yet another scanning electron microscopy discovery coming up regarding the containers in the Osiris shaft system that will continue to integrate everything that we are building the foundation for in this episode. Now, we are looking at a scan that returned 50% copper, and this is the first element that is inexplicable to be naturally occurring at this concentration. Almost 50% of the sample is copper. So start a list with copper being component number 1. And here we are back looking at the concentration of zinc, which at the 1.3% by weight shown in the previous scan would be naturally occurring. However, at the now whopping almost 90% concentration, this is no longer a naturally occurring metallic compound extruding from the limestone. So now add zinc to your list and moving on. Once again, we see the background elements of the limestone itself, but now we are adding in iron at a concentration that would also not be naturally occurring. So now add that to your building list of our metallic compound. All right, and one of my favorite surprises from this particular scanning electron microscopy scan, which is SB, or the element antimony. And at 50% concentration, this rules out it being naturally occurring in the limestone. So now we are adding antimony to our list of metallic compounds. And last but not least, the concentration of thorium in this particular scan at almost 40% has been one of the most frustrating aspects of this chemical analysis. But after an exhaustive amount of work, the revelation that I discovered about this element being in these samples has been one of the most gratifying and exhilarating moments of my research to date. And if you aren't on the edge of your seat yet, it is about to get even more interesting. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we are adding thorium into our metallic compound, and I will show you why here in just a moment. So now let's take a look at this microelement composition of the material. And there are several unusual things about this breakdown that I noticed when I first reviewed this originally. 1. None of the non-metallic elements that were shown on the previous SEM scans are on this list. This list is only the metals. 2nd, some of the metallic elements, for example antimony, that were found in the SEM discovery are also not on this comprehensive list. And 3rd, there is 0 aluminum, which is mentioned in all of the analyses of regular limestone that I showed at the beginning of the video. And the other research team that took the samples from the saw marks also ran into similar issues, where the mass spectrometry analysis, which you can see here, produced inconclusive results. So they went in with the scanning electron microscope to get more data. I also had some questions about exactly where the samples were taken. So as I mentioned in the intro, I was considering holding off on this video until I had all the answers. But this is one of those mysteries where a conclusive answer may never be found. And I wanted you all to be along for the ride with me on this. So I am currently in contact not only with the Acida project, but also with the gentleman that did this SEM analysis and with a team of geologists that are reviewing this data. So this is a work in progress with ongoing developments, which include the original lab analysis sent to me by the Acida project. So here is the original lab report of the mass spectrometry analysis, and it mentions in the report that this method is performing measurements of the metal content in solid objects using the ICP-MS method. So that answered my question as to why the non-metallic elements from the SEM scans did not show up on these results. These results are only discussing the metallic compound. And as you can see here, they took about 30 total samples from 3 different pyramids in multiple locations. So we have here on the left 3 samples that were taken from the pyramid of Amenhotep II. Here in the center, we have 20 different samples that were taken from inside of the Red Pyramid. And here on the right, there were 4 samples taken from inside the Bent Pyramid satellite structure. And these results also contain some very unusual information. However, this list still does not show the antimony that came up on the SEM scans, and the concentrations of these various sample locations do not match the batch of elements listed in the previous slide. So I'm still working my way through this new analysis, and I will be doing another follow-up video when I get the corresponding locations for all 20 samples, and I will be able to show you exactly which elements were found at which spots inside of these chambers. That's going to be another very, very fascinating video. Please subscribe and stay tuned. But for now, let me show you where I am on the functionality of the compound containing the 5 metallic elements that we listed earlier. All right, everyone, just a quick reminder that if you want to help support the channel, please go to thelandofchem.com. I have brand new Land of Chem merch. There's the 5th degree logo, an alchemical symbol for hydrochloric acid featured on the raw image for the Central Pyramid of Giza that was taken during my 2021 research expedition to Egypt, and of course, the OG 2nd degree logo that I'm wearing in today's video, now available at thelandofchem.com. And don't forget, There are limited first edition print copies of the Land of Chem book still available, an initiation into ancient chemistry through the degrees of the Egyptian pyramids, and this book is the genesis for my entire YouTube channel and project. So if you want to help support the channel, just go to the website, thelandofchem.com. You can pick up a t-shirt, grab a limited first edition print copy of the book. Either way, all the orders mean the world to me, so thank you all so much in advance. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we have copper, zinc, iron, antimony, and thorium, and I wanted to show evidence of the existence, knowledge, and possibility of extracting these elements in this ancient time, so the first three should come as no surprise that they are found and mined prevalently all over Egypt. So Egypt is the home to a wealth of mineral resources, including gold, copper, silver, zinc, platinum, and a number of other precious and base metals. So with an estimated 6.7 million ounces of gold, 48 million tons of tantalite, and 50 million tons of coal, Egypt has the potential to be one of the top mining jurisdictions in the world. And I specifically mention the mineral tantalite because we will be revisiting that in a future episode. So we know that they were mining and had access to copper, zinc, and iron. No surprise there. But what about this antimony? Well, this is an image of a mineral called stibnite, which contains a high concentration of antimony. And it turns out, as we have discussed before, that antimony was used prevalently in ancient Egypt as a cosmetic. Stibnite mines located in South Africa. However, the vast majority of this mineral comes from China. So here we have an indication of intercontinental mineral trade, which I will be getting to later when we discuss the rare dacite container found in the second level of the Osiris shaft system. The industrial scale production of chemicals in Egypt within the Egyptian pyramids is directly connected to this ancient system of global commerce that included connections to the Far East, Europe, and South America. And we have seen clear proof of this in Egyptian beads found in Ireland, coca leaves found from South America in the Egyptian mummies, etc. Now, moving on to the most significant revelation that I have uncovered in my investigation of a mineral called monazite. And you may be asking yourself, what the hell is monazite and why is it relevant to the function of the Egyptian pyramids? Well, this is where my research has come full circle and brought me back to the first slide that I ever created for the Land of Chem presentations, where I discuss the title of my book as a play on words for the original name of Egypt, the land of Khem. And this word, chem, spelled Khem, means blackness and conventionally refers to the nutrient-rich black alluvial soils on the banks of the Nile River. And this word, of course, is the etymology for our modern words for alchemy and chemistry. Alchemy, for example, meaning from the blackness, which implies a chemical extraction process from some sort of black material. And during my research process, I discovered what that black material was, and the chem is not the rich alluvial soil from around the Nile River, but there is another blackness from Egypt, the true black gold, and the real treasure of the Land of Chem, which you can see here, this exceptional Egyptian black sand. And when I started to pull this thread, the whole mystery began to unravel and finally reveal itself. So you can see here the heavy minerals, including monazite, in Egyptian black sand deposits. So Egypt's black sand deposits are located in the Nile Delta between Alexandria and Rosetta, and they contain substantial reserves of mineral-heavy sands. And these mineral-heavy sands contain ilmenite, magnetite, hematite, zircon, rutile, and monazite. And this article discusses the extraction of these minerals from the black sand deposits. And you may notice the ilmenite, a crystalline mineral that contains iron and titanium that I discussed in the previous episode regarding the metallurgical analysis of ancient Egyptian saw blades. And this mineral-rich black sand is found all throughout the regions here along the coastline on this map. So what can you chemically extract from these black sands? So, the Egyptian placer deposits, extensive black sand deposits, contain strategic and economic heavy minerals which are required for the industrial exploitation, whether for the nuclear industry or other metallurgical or engineering industries. The mentioned deposits comprise huge reserves of the 6 heavy economic minerals, which include monazite, zircon, rutile, ilmenite, magnetite, and garnet. So the first 3 economic minerals, namely monazite, contain uranium, thorium, zirconium, hafnium, and titanium. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Egypt is the home to one of the richest natural deposits of heavy minerals that contain these extremely exotic and rare metallic earth elements, including thorium. And your first thought might be, oh, they chemical reactions. Well, that is not really how catalyst works. As I mentioned before in episode 44, effective catalyst has an extremely high surface area. It is a 3-dimensional material that is permeated with tiny microscopic holes that exponentially increase the surface area and the efficacy of your catalyst material. Painting a 2-dimensional layer of metallic sealer onto the walls of these chambers is not an effective way to catalyze a chemical reaction. It certainly wouldn't hurt, but this is not the primary mechanism of operation that is facilitating these reactions. There is something else occurring within these reaction chambers that make the chemical reactions go, and I will be getting to that very, very soon. But it is not this metallic material. So what was the function of this coating compound that appears to be applied to these chamber walls? Well, I think that it was a high-temperature sealing compound that was applied to the walls of the chambers to increase the watertight seal and to protect the stone from the conditions within the reactors. This compound may have also functioned to maintain the high temperatures within these reaction chambers. And you can see here a product called Crystal Clear Stone Seal. And I just happened to find this image, and the name of this product perfectly matched my concept for the function of this material, because we saw at the beginning of the video that the microscope images of this material show that it is crystalline in nature. So I would describe this coating compound as a metallic, crystalline, clear stone sealer. And in the process of these chemical reactions, these strontium and other trace elements from the limestone itself began to extrude from inside of the stone as a result of the fluctuation of temperature and pressure within these chambers. These elements were liquefied by the high temperatures of these reactions, and when the pressure in the chamber dropped, the material began to ooze out of the stone. In this process, it also picked up the sealing compound that was applied on top of the chamber walls. So this is why we have 3 different layers of this chemical analysis. We have the trace elements that can be found naturally occurring within the limestone. We have the strontium, which has replaced some of the calcium in the calcium carbonate limestone lattice. And we have these 5 metals: copper, zinc, iron, antimony, and thorium, which were chemically processed from these minerals, including the Egyptian black sand deposits, to create this high temperature sealing compound. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen, alchemy. Processing of the blackness, the chem, these heavy mineral sands of Egypt. Ancient chemistry, as described in the first slide I ever made for this channel. Full circle. Thank you so much to the Acida Project for allowing me to present this chemical analysis. I will put a link to their website in the video description below, and please subscribe and stay tuned, because there is a lot more to this coming up soon. All right, everyone, that is it for today's video. This was episode 55, the chemical analysis of the Red Pyramid staining part 2, and I really hope you enjoyed today's video. As I mentioned before, I am not even close to done with this topic yet. So I'm currently in touch not only with the Acida Project, but also with the gentleman that did this chemical analysis, and also with a team of geologists that are reviewing the results of this discovery, and I will keep you all posted in part 3. Also, as I mentioned before, this is just the tip of the iceberg of what we will be discussing in the upcoming episodes. So if you have an notification bell, because you do not want to miss what I have coming up in the next few videos in the.com, you can pick up a limited first edition print copy of the book, grab yourself a t-shirt. Either way, all the orders and support mean the world to me. I always forget to say this, but please follow me on Instagram. I have the best page on IG, exclusive photos and videos from all of my research expeditions. So if you haven't already, please follow me on Instagram at The Land of Chem. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that is it for today's episode. So I will see you next time. Yo, are you still watching this? Please subscribe to The Land of Chem here on YouTube and click that little notification button. New videos coming out every single week. And check out this other episode. Come on, do it. Do it now.